Part 42. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 411. Chapter 411 Chapter 411 Uncle Wu, I will face it with you. Zhang Xiao bit his lip with his teeth, his face was bloodless, he looked at Fu Jianxiu and responded softly, yeah. Fu Jianxiu lowered his eyes and looked at the woman beside him. Her face was pale and her petite body was trembling, but she stood beside him resolutely, recalling what he asked her in the car. When I was young, your great-grandfather knew about our affairs, and now the internet is all our affairs. Do you want to face it with Uncle Wu? If you don't want to, Uncle Wu will immediately send you abroad for protection. He thought she would refuse to go back to his old house with him, but he didn't expect the little girl to hug him around his waist with unusually firm eyes. Uncle Wu, I will face it with you. Uncle Wu, I love you. At that moment, Fu Jianxiu felt that everything was worth it, and his little girl loved him. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at the door in front of her. It was fake that she wasn't nervous. As long as she stepped through this door, she would face the old man's huge disappointment, which made her feel the most distressed. No matter what people outside said, she and fifth uncle were fine, but she couldn't bear to see the old man sad. She also knew how cruel she was to the old man when she was with Fu Jianxiu. Face may not be important to her, but it is very important to the entire Fu family. She is slandering the Fu family now, but escaping abroad, Fu Jianxiu can handle everything well. As long as she wants to be with Fu Jianxiu together, they must face these problems. Now that they are standing in the whirlpool of the storm, they must face it. Xiaoxi, don't be afraid. Fu Jianxiu's warm palm wrapped around Jiangxi's little hand. Jiangxi took a deep breath, and his long eyelashes trembled as if they were hit by a storm. He leaned against Fu Jianxiu, as if he could get great courage from him. Uncle Wu, I believe you. I am not afraid, I will face it with you, right? Fu Jianxiu's eyes were deep, he lowered his head, and pressed his warm lips on Zhang Xiaoxi's smooth forehead. Xiao Xiao, my fifth uncle loves you. Fifth uncle, I love you too. Zhang Xiaoxi hugged Fu Jianxiu's waist and buried his head in his chest. The two lingered at the door for a while, then Fu Jianxiu took Zhang Xiaoxi's hand and pushed open the red-brown door. In the hall, Mr. Fu was sitting at the main seat, with Fu Kaoqiu, Fu Haiwei, Fu Shenhua, Guan Yang, and others standing on both sides. Fu Yan. Zhang Xiaoxi looked at this posture and subconsciously shrank back from Fu Jianxiu. Fu Jianxiu frowned and squeezed Zhang Xiaoxi's little hand to comfort her. In fact, they had already seen him when they arrived at the gate. The old man's blood pressure had already spiked just now, so when they saw the two of them appearing, everyone frowned. Fu Jianxiu led Zhang Xiaoxiao to sit on the sofa, and took out a few apricots from his pocket and gave them to her. I believe in Uncle Wu. Zhang Xiao held Xingzi in her hand, and her palms were full of sweat. She had already mustered up her courage outside just now. When she came in, she realized that she didn't even have the courage to look at the old man. She was afraid that she would see the old man's eyes. There is disgust and hatred. She is afraid that these relatives will disgust her. She is afraid that they will believe what is said on the internet that she climbed up to seduce Uncle Wu. Dad, Xiao Xiao is pregnant, you will scare her. Fu Jianxiu used his tall body to block Zhang Xiao's petite body. Damn it! Mr. Fu's furious voice resounded throughout the hall, and the crutch in his hand flew towards Fu Jianxiu without any surprise. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 412. Chapter 412 Chapter 412 Surgery. Fifth uncle. Xiao Wu. Fu Jianxiu's eyes narrowed slightly, his brows tightened, and he remained motionless. Zhang Xiaoxiu's face turned pale, and he stood up from the sofa in a hurry. He instinctively ran to Fu Jianxiu and hugged him, using his body to block the stick thrown by the old man. Zhang Xiaoxi's arrival was so sudden that Fu Jianxiu didn't react and saw the stick hit Zhang Xiaoxi's body. Iffies. Zhang Xiaoxiao exhaled in pain. The stick thrown by Mr. Fu in anger was naturally very strong. It was originally meant to hit Fu Jianxiu, but because of the height difference, it hit Zhang Xiaoxi directly on the head. Well, it was a stick. If it had been something sharp, I'm afraid it would have bled by now. However, there was also a big bump on her head. Zhang Xiaoxiao gently touched the big bump on her head with her hand, and the pain made her grin. Our. Fu Jianxiu hugged Zhang Xiaoxi's body and looked down at the bag on her head. His face was gray, his facial features were tense, and his thin lips were trembling slightly. Xiaoxi. Zhang Xiaoxiao leaned on Fu Jianxiu's chest, trying to make his voice sound calmer. Uncle Wu, I'm fine. Boss, show me when your young Guanyang came to Fu Jianxiu's side at some unknown time. When Guanyang came over, Fu Jianxiu recovered from the shock, but his expression had not yet recovered. Hurry and show me. I'm fine. Zhang Xiaoxi was about to say something, but his head suddenly felt dizzy, and his vision gradually blurred when he looked at Fu Jianxiu, and then his body went limp. Our. Mr. Fu saw Zhang Xiaoxiao fainting and tremblingly wanted to go up to see Zhang Xiaoxiao, but he fell forward before he could even take 2 steps. Dad. Old man. Hospital. Zhang Xiao was placed in the same ward as Mr. Fu. Zhang Xiao's head problem was not serious, he was just frightened. In addition, he was already in the hospital, so he fainted, but he still had to stay in the hospital for a few days. Fu Jianxiu stood by Zhang Shishi's bedside. Looking at Zhang Shishi, whose face was pale, his lips were bloodless, and his beautiful eyebrows were slightly frowning, his heart felt as if it was being bitten by tens of millions of ants, and it was filled with dense pain. The 3 of them were guarding Mr. Fu's side. The old man has already put in salt water. The situation is worse than when Zhang was a child. Guanyang stood in front of Fu Qiuqiao with the old man's medical records. Brother, the old man's illness is a bit serious. He needs surgery. It's myocardial infarction. Fu Qiuqiao frowned and glanced at Fu Jianxiu before replying to Guanyang's question, is the risk high? The old man is a bit old. I will perform an operation. The risk of the operation can be controlled to 20%, Guanyang replied. Well, let's do it. Fu Qiuqiao made a quick decision. Brother, the operation will be performed in a while. You sign first. Guanyang handed the operation consent form to Fu Qiuqiao and asked him to sign it. Fu Qiuqiao wrote his name in a flash, and walked in the direction of Fu Jianxiu. His tone was quite stiff. Xiao Wu, let's talk. Fu Jianxiu had cold eyes and gloomy eyes. He didn't want to leave Zhang Xiaoxi even half a step, but he had to talk to Fu Qiuqiao. In the end, he went to talk to Fu Qiuqiao with a sullen face. Guanyang office. Fu Qiuqiao bit his cheek several times before suppressing the anger in his heart, and looked at his younger brother. Xiao Wu, have you really considered Dad? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 413. Chapter 413. Chapter 413. When I was young, I was the only one. Fu Jianxiu's eyebrows were filled with a sinister look, his face was sullen and he did not answer Fu Qiuqiao. Dad is so old. We don't object to your relationship with Xiao Xiao, but can you let the old man slowly accept it? He loves you and Xiao Xiao so much. You let him suddenly accept the news. It's just hard to accept. Fu Qiuqiao suppressed his anger and stared at Fu Jianxiu. Fu Jianxiu had cold eyes and said indifferently, he already knows in his heart that whatever happens will not help. Someone put a hidden gun behind your back, and you didn't notice it at all. Fukuacheo was angry. Just like what Fuchinexio said, anything that happened was irreversible and would not help. However, the matter between Zhang Xiaoxiao and him was there must be someone behind the commotion. The Fu family didn't say anything, but they were very united. Naturally, they would not see Fuchinexio being punished. Speaking of this, Fuchinexio's face became even more tense, and his temples were twitching. Of course he knew that someone was behind this matter, and he asked Luo Yi to check it out. He also had some confidence in his heart. I'll take care of it. Xiao Wu, in fact, the old man saw clearly what you and Xiao did at the door. I saw clearly. Although the old man was very angry at the time, it had not reached the point where it was completely unacceptable. Fukuacheo was in the old man's house at that time. The people around me also deliberately observed the old man's expression. Well, you can't be stimulated as a child now. Don't keep a straight face in front of her. She is very sensitive. Don't scare her, Fuchinexi warned. Fukuacheo. I was originally going to preach to this kid, but instead I was warned by him. The public opinion on the internet will definitely not dissipate in recent times. Xiao Xiao will definitely be scolded badly. You'd better not let her go out alone. Fukuacheo also loves Zhang Xiao and the Fu family protects her. Everyone in Ruchin knows this. That's why when she was engaged to Wen Yuuru, she had many people protecting her. I know. Don't just watch when you are young. You should also watch when dad is undergoing surgery. Don't be too heartless and forget about dad when you have a wife. Fukuacheo patted his shoulder. Originally, he had a lot of things to blame Fuchinexio in his heart. After all, he still didn't say it out loud. If he, the elder brother, could have seen his brother's thoughts earlier, maybe things like this would not have happened today. In this way, Zhang Xiaoxi would still be their beloved little girl, and then go to college step by step, fall in love with her peers, and eventually get married. But he didn't find out whether it was Fuchinexio who hid his feelings deeply or whether he, the elder brother, was careless. Now that things have become like this, he, the elder brother, has to bear the responsibility for them. Dad, you are there, but I was the only one when I was little. Fuchinexio answered Fukuacheo coldly. Fukuacheo. Do you think these uncles and aunts are just decorations? The same childhood relative wanted to be angered to death by his own brother. Fuyan has been guarding me since I was a child. Why don't you worry? If you don't go to dad's surgery, your family will hate you as well. When you were a child, Fukuacheo said threateningly. Sure enough, Fuchinexio's expression changed as soon as Zhang Xiaoxiao was mentioned, but his answer remained the same: she won't hate the old man if he's fine. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 414. Chapter 414. Chapter 414. Grandpa, are you angry? Fukuacheo twitched at the corner of his eye. He knew that Zhang Xiaoxiao could never escape from his position. He knew her too well and could eat her to death. When dad goes into the operating room, you have to go, Xiao Wu, don't go too far, Fukuacheo said helplessly. Fuchinexio and Kuacheo returned to the ward. Fuyan had just moistened the corners of Zhang Xiaoxiao's lips with a cotton swab. Fuchinexio went over and took over what she was doing, looking at Zhang Xiaoxiao with gentle eyes. Zhang Shishi's lips moved slightly, and then his long eyelashes trembled. He slowly opened a gap and looked at Fuchinexio's face through the gap. He couldn't see clearly. His voice was hoarse. Uncle Wu, this where is it? Fuchinexio frowned and answered her, hospital. Grandpa, are you angry? Zhang Xiao opened all his eyes weakly. Fuchinexio stared at Zhang Shishi with a slight tremor all over. No. Zhang Xiao opened his eyes completely, and his vision slowly focused. If he hadn't seen the old man lying in the hospital bed next to him, he would have almost believed Fuchinexai's words, and said emotionally, "Grandpa." Fuchinexai looked at Zhangxiaxi, whose eyes were filled with tears, with crystal beads streaking across his temples. His handsome face was horribly sinking, and the veins on his forehead were bulging out. He bit his back molars and whispered, "You are excited? What, you're fine, but your blood pressure is a little high. If you're emotional, be careful, kid." Zhang Xiao protected his belly nervously, but still looked at the old man and struggled to stand up from the bed. "Uncle Wu, I want to see Grandpa." Fu Chenexai's face was tense. "You're not allowed to go, you should lie down and rest now, the old man is right next to you and can't run away." "But Grandpa's expression is very wrong, Uncle Wu, I'm worried about Grandpa." Zhang Xiaoxiu's voice was hoarse with a cry. Fu Chenexai didn't say that he wouldn't let her see it. She would only be more worried if she saw it. Not to mention that the old man would have to undergo an operation later. If he knew this, he would be even more excited. He touched her head with his hand, soothing, "When I was little, you can see if you look at it like this, you are still hanging on the water, you also need to rest, even if you don't rest, the child must rest." "But Grandpa, I feel that he is very bad." Zhang Shi stared at the old man's direction, his big eyes full of worry. Fu Chenexai lowered his head and kissed her forehead. "When we were young, would you look after Uncle Wu? Uncle Wu is also feeling very uncomfortable now. You are injured. You were injured to protect Uncle Wu. Do you know how much Uncle Wu's heart hurts?" Zhang Xiao's eyes were red and his voice was choked. "Uncle Wu, I'm sorry, but I didn't want you to get hurt, so I didn't think much about it at that time. I just wanted to protect you, just like you protect me. Uncle Wu, did I do something wrong?" Fu Chenexai's heart really ached. How could his little girl be so stupid? "Child, you are indeed wrong. Uncle Wu is not afraid of getting hurt. Uncle Wu is always and always afraid of only you getting hurt. If anything happens to you and the child, have you ever thought about? Uncle Wu, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Not only did I hurt Grandpa, I almost hurt the child. It's all my fault. I'm not sorry." Zhang Xiaoxiao cried and apologized, which made Fu Chenexai really feel bad. "I really want to integrate her into my bones. The silly girl is her fault here and there. Even if it is a fault, it is also his fault. It is he who did not handle everything well and made her suffer along with him." End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 415. Chapter 415. Chapter 415. Some people never want to understand in their lifetime. You are not wrong. If you are wrong, it is also fifth uncle's fault. Fu Chenexai's heartache for Zhang Shishi can be seen in his bones. His eyes are deep red and he hugs Zhang Xiaoxi. "What, you have to protect yourself as soon as possible, you know." "Well, Uncle Wu." The four Fu family members looked there and sighed in their hearts. How could they be separated here and there? They were inseparable for a long time. In the early days, they thought that Fu Chenexai was in love with Zhang Xiaoxi and wanted to keep Zhang Xiaoxi by his side. But now it seems that this is not the case. It seems that the two are in love, but this love is not very good. Just being blessed. "Third sister, what do you think about this matter?" Fu Shenzhen lowered his voice and said next to Fu Yan's ear. Fu Yan's slender eyebrows were lightly frowned. What could she do? In fact, she had already been slowly revealing to the old man Fu Chenexai and the others. Before the long flow of water had even begun, the flood had burst the bank. She had already accepted this fact. Zhang Xiaoxi was originally trained by Fu Chen, and they all loved Zhang Xiaoxiao very much. The old man would definitely not let Zhang Xiaoxi marry off like that. Rather than marrying and making the old man sad, it would be better to let Zhang Xiaoxiao and Fu Chenexai be together. Anyway, the two of them are not related by blood. People who are not related by blood are recognized by the law. How outsiders see it is a matter for outsiders. It is just a bad influence on the Fu family, but the Fu family can still bear it. Tell me what you think about this matter, Fu Yan asked Fu Shenzhen. Fu Shenhua smiled silly. Third sister, you have a way with Xiao Wu, can you control Xiao Wu? Even the old man in this family can't control Xiao Wu, let alone you and me. This matter it has taken me 2 years to figure out that there is no harm in them being together. What kind of public opinion? As long as there is new public opinion, the old one will be overshadowed. Time can dilute everything. If you had told the old man the first time you knew it, maybe he would have figured it out by now. Fu Yan looked at him coldly. Fu Shenzhen touched his nose and said, Sister, there are some things that some people may not be able to figure out in their entire lives. For example, second brother, look at it, how many years have passed and you are still looking for that man? If you don't mention something, you'll be itchy, right? Fu Yan slapped her twice with her backhand. Fu Chenxiu comforted Zhang Xiaoxiao and put him to sleep. It was almost time for the old man to operate. Fu Chenxiu told Fu Yan to keep an eye on Zhang Xiaoxiao and went to watch the old man during the operation. For no other reason than to watch Zhang Xiaoxiao's behavior. He didn't care about the old man's aggressive attitude, but he still had to guard him. It wasn't worthwhile for him to be marked down by a little girl for no reason. Fu Chenxiu followed. Zhang Xiao, who was sleeping on the hospital bed, suddenly opened his eyes and looked at Fu Yan with pleading eyes. Third aunt, what happened to Grandpa? Fu Yan was a little surprised when Zhang Xiao woke up. She was stunned for a while and then said, It's okay. Don't worry. Take good care of your body. I heard just now that they were going to operate on Grandpa. Third aunt told me what happened to Grandpa. Was it because of the matter between me and fifth uncle that he was angry with him? Zhang Xiaoxiao was emotional. Fu Yan stared at her. Child, if I say that Grandpa is angry with you, what are you going to do? Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at Fu Yan with a face as white as paper. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 416. Chapter 416 Chapter 416 I don't want to be separated from my fifth uncle. If the old man is really angry with her, then what should she do? Zhang Xiao's heart is complicated. She doesn't know. She really doesn't know what to do. Do you want her to separate from Fu Chenxiu? She didn't want to separate from him. Fu Chenxiu really couldn't survive without him, but if she didn't separate, would she hurt the old man and cut off the relationship with him? The old man loved her so much, and she would be struck by lightning, so she couldn't answer Fu Yan's words. Fu Yan stared at her with deep eyes, even a little aggressively. When I was young, if my third aunt asked you not to have this child, and then my third aunt sent you abroad, would you be willing? Zhang Xiao's eyes were red and his face was pale. He subconsciously covered his lower abdomen with his hands and looked at Fu Yan helplessly. It was as if something was blocked in his throat, making it difficult to speak. She doesn't want to abort the child. This is her and fifth uncle's child. She can accept all the rumors and rumors outside, she can bear it, but can the entire Fu family bear it? When you were young, you were still young. There were too many men in the world, but you had too few contacts. If you go out and take a look, maybe you would find that there are many men who are better than your fifth uncle and who you like more than your fifth uncle, Fu Yan told her seriously. Zhang Xiaoxiao answered Fu Yan immediately this time, I will never meet anyone in this world who loves me more than Uncle Wu, and I also like Uncle Wu. Third aunt, I don't want to be separated from my fifth uncle, nor do I want to abort the child. Third aunt, please help me, Zhang Xiaoxiao said in a pleading tone at the end. Xiaoxiao, do you know how much public opinion you and your fifth uncle will receive when you are together? These public opinions are not only for you two, but also for the entire Fu family. Fu Yan felt sorry for Zhang Xiaoxiao, but if Zhang Xiaoxiao even connected her, if you can't bear these, why should you bear the rumors outside? Zhang Xiao bit her lip and tears kept falling down one by one. She couldn't be too selfish and only care about herself, but when she thought of separating from Fu Chenxiu, she couldn't do it, and she didn't want to. Fu Chenxiu had paid so much for her, she knew that she couldn't be too selfish, so she had to be brave this time. Third aunt, I know this is very bad for the Fu family, but I don't want to be separated from fifth uncle, even if I'm not sensible. You guys, you can scold me or accuse me, but I don't have any objections. I only have a small request, that is, please don't let me separate from my fifth uncle. Fu Yan looked at Zhang Xiaoxi's firm gaze, and the stone in her heart fell. Zhang Xiaoxi's performance proved that she had the heart to bear it. Third aunt, can't you? Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at Fu Yan nervously. Fu Yan reached out and touched Zhang Xiaoxi's head. Her eyes were not as sharp as before and were much softer. She also had a slight smile on her face. If third aunt really sends you away, your fifth uncle will let third aunt go. Aunt Zhangxi. Child, don't blame third aunt for speaking so aggressively just now. If third aunt doesn't push you like this, what if you can't stand the rumors outside? I was just looking at your ability to bear it. If you can't bear it, then third aunt will really advise your fifth uncle to send you abroad and wait until you give birth to the child, Fu Yan explained to Zhang Xiaoxiao. Zhangxi. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 417. Chapter 417. Chapter 417 will accept it? Sang Wu, do you mean you are willing to help me? Zhangxi asked in disbelief. Fu Yan nodded, I will help you talk to Grandpa. When you were little, we all loved you, especially your grandpa. He loves you more than us, so he will figure it out. Fu Yan's words made Zhang Xiaoxiao feel guilty. The old man was indeed very kind to her, but she had made him sad and disappointed. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaoxiao got out of bed and asked, Third aunt, has Grandpa's surgery started? Fu Yan pinned her down by the bed and refused to let her move. Grandpa is just performing a small operation, and your uncle Guanyang is the one doing it. Don't worry, you should lie down in bed now. Don't let anything happen. I believe your grandpa is awake. The first thing I want to do when I come here is to see you alive and healthy. Zhangxi's beautiful eyebrows slightly twisted. She even woke up and refused to look at the old man. She felt that it was impossible. However, Fu Yan's words made sense. She was so weak now. The old man must have felt guilty when he hit her with a stick. Definitely want to see her alive and kicking. Fu Yan knew she wanted to go, but no matter how many people there were in the old man's surgery, they still had to wait outside the corridor. Instead of waiting in the corridor outside, it was better to wait in the ward without being exposed to the cold wind. When you are young, listen to the three dam, Grandpa has to go back to the ward after the operation, so just wait for him here. But, I want to see Grandpa. Even if I am just waiting outside, I want to go and watch him. Zhang Xiao was scared. She was afraid that she would not be able to see the old man again. Although Guanyang was the surgeon, but the man on the operating table was still there. No one can guarantee things 100%. If the old man cannot get out of the operating table, she will live in guilt for the rest of her life. She still owes the old man an apology. I'm sorry that it was all because of her that he entered the operating room in anger. When you were young, your fifth uncle asked me to watch you. Go there and guard you now. I can guarantee that you will be sent here by your fifth uncle. Do you want to quarrel with your fifth uncle? Fu Yan persuaded the general. Our. Zhang Xiao bit his lip and said nothing, but he knew very well in his heart that what Fu Yan said was true. Fu Chenexai would definitely send him back to the ward and then stay by her side. Then there would be one less person around the old man. Guarded. Listen to third aunt and wait here, it's not like you don't know your fifth uncle's character. Fu Yan can only use Fu Chenexai to persuade Zhang Xiaoxiao. After listening to Fu Yan's words, Zhang Xiaoxiao lay back on the bed, grabbed Fu Yan's clothes and looked at her. Third aunt, do you think grandpa can accept my relationship with fifth uncle? Then what do you think of your grandfather's treatment of you? Fu Yan asked Zhang Xiaoxi. Zhang Xiao basically blurted out, Grandpa is good to me. He is so good that he can give me anything I want, just like picking the stars in the sky for me. Fu Yan smiled softly, that's great. Now that you know it, what are you worried about? Zhang Xiao's head had not turned around yet, and he was still a little confused. What do you mean? Fu Yan knocked her little head. Where has your usual cleverness gone? You haven't turned a corner yet. Jiangxi. Your grandpa will allow you to be with your fifth uncle, because he loves you and your fifth uncle loves you even more. Because he loves you both, he will accept what has happened. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 418. Chapter 418. Chapter 418. Sharing a body. What's more, you still have a baby in your belly. Fu Yan looked at Zhang Xiao's belly with a smile. Zhang Xiao touched her belly, and she had a maternal glow that was not what she should have at her age. Then she looked up at Fu Yan and said, Third aunt, will grandpa like this baby? Of course, your grandpa only has a grandson, Fu Ling. What worries you the most is the marriages of several of your uncles. Your fifth uncle is the most difficult one among them. Now that you have the bones of the Fu family in your belly, you are still a little kid. 5. The old man will be even happier, but you have to give the old man some time to accept it. You know, Fu Yan is sure that the old man likes Jiang's child. Zhang Xiao hoped that the old man would like the child in her belly, so that she would not worry so much that the relationship would become so tense. Third aunt, do you like this child? Fu Yan didn't understand why she asked. Of course she liked this child. Fu Chenexai's flesh and blood are connected to hers. Could it be that there was an expression on her face that she didn't like this child? Of course Sang likes this child. Jiangxi raised the corners of her mouth slightly. She was afraid that this child would be a child that no one would bless. Now it seems that someone will love him, her. It's great, third aunt, if one day I am no longer here, you can't help me take care of this child and my fifth uncle. What are you talking about? Your fifth uncle and I are older than you. If we die, we will die first. What are you talking about now? Fu Yan looked at Zhang Xiaoxi with a bad feeling in her heart. Saying such unlucky words for no reason. Jiangxi felt sad. She had only returned to her own body temporarily, but that Zhang Xiao, they were sharing the same body. In the end, who would completely occupy it? No one knew. She didn't understand that woman. Because of her poor character, she wanted to find someone to take care of her baby on her behalf, but she had no way of telling anyone this. You never know which one will come first between the third aunt's accident and tomorrow. I'm just saying this, it may not happen. Zhang Xiaoxi smoothed his words. Of course, Fu Yan didn't want to go too far. When I was little, everyone in my family would love this baby very much, so don't think too much about it. Yeah, Zhang Xiao nodded. The old man's operation ended at night. The moment they saw the old man being pushed out, the hearts of the Fu family brothers and sisters went back to their stomachs. They said it was Guanyang who performed the surgery, but when they didn't see the person coming out safely, it was actually all surface calmness. The operation was successful, but the old man's heart cannot be stimulated anymore. Guanyang said this to Fu Chenexai. Well, we know Representative Fu Qiuacheo spoke. Tonight, let the old man stay in the intensive care unit. he will be observed for one night. If there is no serious problem, he will be sent back to the general ward. Brother, you don't have to stay here all night. Guanyang recorded the old man's data and left. Because he had another operation to do, and anesthesia had already started there. As soon as Guanyang left, there were only 4 brothers left outside the intensive care unit. Fu Chenexai was eager to go back to see Zhang Xiao and didn't want to stay here longer. I'm going back first. You guys will notify me when Dad wakes up. Xiao, did you hear what Guanyang said just now? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 419. Chapter 419. Chapter 419. I will take her back. Well, I will take my child back with me, Fu Chenexai said with a frown. Fu Qiuqiao looked worried. Is this just a matter of taking Zhang Xiao back home? Obviously not. The old man already knows about their affairs, and it is still making a fuss on the internet, which is not easy to calm down. His intention is to let him deal with all these things. Xiao Wu, how do you plan to withdraw from the public opinion? Fu Qiuqiao asked helplessly. No withdrawal, Fu Chenexai replied coldly to Fu Qiuqiao. Fu Qiuqiao's eyes widened and he refused to retreat. Does he want public opinion to develop freely? No one knows how it will develop in the end. If you don't control it when it's controllable, then when should you control it? Fu Chenexai's operation made him confused. In the end, he gave up the struggle. I don't care if you control it or not, the only thing I ask of you right now is that Xiao doesn't let the old man be stimulated. Well, don't let him leave the hospital for the time being. Fu Chenexai meant that he needed some time. Okay, Fu Qiuqiao agreed. When Fu Chenexai returned to the ward, he saw someone craning his neck to look at the door of the ward. When he saw him appearing, his face was full of disappointment, and his face collapsed. Fu Chen's slender eyebrows were furrowed. The little girl was so unhappy when she saw him. She deserved a beating. Xiao Xiao, you eat slowly, I'll leave first. Chu Hanyu was originally brought food by Zhang Xiao, and he also came to see if she was okay. She was still worried about things online. Fu Chenexai came back just after learning about the old man's injury. She was afraid of Uncle Fu's deep down, so she didn't want to stay anymore when she saw Fu Chenexai appeared. Zhang Xiao Xiao. Aren't you here to see her? Why did you leave? Chu Hanyu scurried like a little mouse and disappeared into the ward, while Fu Yan had not come back yet. Uncle Wu, you see you have unleashed Hanyu's potential, Zhang Xiao Xiao said while biting a big strawberry. Fu Chenexai walked to the edge of her bed and sat down. When he talked about the old man's condition, he knew that Dao Zhang wanted to know when he was a child. Grandpa is fine and still in the intensive care unit. He will be back tomorrow. Can I go see Grandpa now? Zhang Xiao Xiao asked, biting his chopsticks. You can go outside the glass now and have a look. We will be discharged from the hospital tomorrow, Fu Chenexai said. Zhang Xiao didn't understand why she would be discharged from the hospital tomorrow. Could it be that her injuries were minor and she didn't need to stay? Fu Chenexai knew what she was thinking, so he began to explain. Your official said that the old man can no longer be stimulated, and our affairs will be slowed down for the time being. Zhang Xiao lowered her eyelids. She understood what Fu Chenexai said, which meant that the old man's blood pressure might rise when he saw them, so it would be better not to meet them for the time being. It's okay, the old man will accept us. You have to trust Uncle Wu. Fu Chenexai squeezed her little hand to calm her down. Zhang Shixiao sniffed and raised his eyes to look at Fu Chenexai. Fifth uncle, I know, I can understand. This matter takes time for everyone. I will go back to Nangziyuan after visiting Grandpa later. Be good, Don't be sad, this is not your fault, it is also Uncle Wu's fault, so don't think too much about it. Fu Chenxiao hugged Zhang Xiaoxiao to comfort her. Fifth uncle, I know, and I also believe that Grandpa will accept us. I can wait, Zhang Xiao said with a thick nasal voice, and he was so obedient that it made people feel distressed. End of this chapter. After wearing the book, I became the group favorite. Author, Little Ginger. Chapter 420. Chapter 420. Chapter 420. It's all my fault. Fu Chenxiao pushed Zhang Xiaoxi outside the intensive care unit. Zhang Xiaoxiao looked at the old man lying on the hospital bed through the glass window with red eyes and wet eyes. He kept saying to the inside, "Grandpa, I'm sorry, it's all my fault, you do surgery." The crease between Fu Chenxiao's eyebrows was deeply twisted. When classmate Zhang Xiao apologized, his heart felt like it was being twisted by a thin wire. If it beats, it would be strangled and painful, but he couldn't disturb the little girl's conversation. Being able to listen and protect quietly. "Grandpa, you must wake up quickly. I will not make you angry when I appear in front of you. When will you calm down and want to see me?" "I will come to see you." Zhang Xiaoxi's cheeks were wet with tears at some point. The thin sobs made his little body tremble. Fu Chenxiao lowered his eyebrows. The little girl was too excited to stay here. He touched the top of her hair with his hands and rubbed it. "We will wait until the old man wakes up to see him. Don't cry." Zhang Xiaoxi grabbed Fu Chenxiao's arm and burst into tears, as if releasing all his suppressed emotions. "Uncle Wu, Grandpa doesn't want to see me. I'm a heartless girl. I made him sad. I'll give it to him. The Fu family is in disgrace, and it is all my fault that my grandfather is still criticized at such an old age." Fu Chenxiao's heart was bleeding. How could this be her fault? He was the one who possessed her, he was the one who forced her, and he was the one who made her pregnant. None of this had anything to do with her, even if the old man really wanted to hate her. He would only be the one to deal with it, it was none of her business. "Child, you are not wrong. Your grandfather will not be angry with you. He is angry with Uncle Wu and it has nothing to do with you." Fu Chenxiao could only comfort her in this way. "Uncle Wu, is it a mistake for us to be together?" Fu Chenxiao held someone in his arms with scarlet eyes. "How could it be a mistake for us to be together? We really loved each other when we were young. Two people who love each other should be together. We have no blood relationship. The law allows it. We are legal. But Grandpa can't accept it." Zhang Xiaoxiao cared about the old man's feelings. She still broke his heart for someone who loved her so much. Fu Chenxiao hugged her tightly and said in a low voice, "When I was young, I believed that Uncle Wu, your grandpa, would accept it, because he loves us very much, and he will tolerate and understand us. Uncle Wu, I'm really scared. I'm so scared that Grandpa won't wake up even if he's lying in there. Then the two of us will be eternal sinners. I don't want your life to be stained because of me. Uncle Wu, you are so a perfect person." Zhang Xiaoxiao buried his head in Fu Chenxiao's arms and whispered. Fu Chenxiao never thought that the pressure in her heart would be so great. She put all the faults on herself. She considered everyone but herself. This girl was really stupid, so stupid that it made people feel bad. "When I was young, Uncle Wu loved you and you loved Uncle Wu. He didn't care what outsiders thought, and Uncle Wu didn't want you to feel sad over irrelevant things, you know. Fifth uncle, how can you not care, for such an outstanding person like Fu Chenxiao? If she does not handle this matter well, then it will be the public opinion that he will be talked about in the future." In Fu Chenxiao's eyes, there was only Zhang Xiaoxi, and nothing else mattered. Even if he got a bad reputation, he still wanted to be with Zhang Xiaoxi. "Child, in the eyes of Uncle Wu, everything about you is beautiful, so don't have that kind of thought, you know," Fu Chenxiao said, rubbing her little head. End of this chapter.